Own Way, the podcast with me, your host, Kori McClurg. Hey, everybody. Welcome back to Get Out of Your Own Way podcast. So, I'm Kori McClurg, and today we're going to talk about something that nobody thinks is very sexy, but it is like the most critical thing when it comes to changing our behavior, changing our habits, just getting our brain right in general, and that is sleep. I cannot express to you enough how important sleep is. So I think we all kind of, come from the old school, like, we gotta, press hard and sleep is for wimps and, or like, sleep's for old people, you get to sleep when you're retired or whatever. But please hear me. Sleep is not a luxury, and it is not just for old people. It is absolutely essential to the functioning of your body. So before you try to do anything else, as far as, cleaning up your diet or, get on an exercise routine or whatever, figure out how to get enough sleep. So why is that? Because everything else is going to be pretty much impossible if you don't get the sleep thing right to begin with. You won't, I hate to tell you this, you're not going to be ultimately successful in your other attempts for changing your behavior and, just generally getting healthier without adequate sleep. So here's the deal. Here's why. Sleep deprivation, of course, you're probably familiar. You might have even experienced this. I know I have. I was in college and did stupid things like stay awake for multiple days at a time. And I experienced some of these symptoms of that. So hallucinations, for sure, confusion, even depersonalization, like slurred speech even, and ultimately psychosis, if you're awake long enough. But, I know we all think like, well, being awake for, 3 days till we experience psychosis, that sounds really extreme. You'd never, get that far, but you're not out of the woods because you didn't like stay awake for 3 days. If you're going to have a total mental breakdown from lack of sleep, doesn't that imply to you that sleep is pretty important? Like something important is happening when you sleep. If you don't get it, your brain literally will break down. So yes, something is like happening very important when we sleep. Any animal, and they've done these just excruciating experiments. This is animal cruelty for sure. But we know for a fact that any animal that is continuously deprived of sleep will die. But the thing is, even if you miss a few hours of sleep over, the course of the week, you're depriving your body of the ability to do that important thing that it's doing when you're sleeping. And of course, now we have data that shows us what exactly is happening when we sleep and hence why we need it. So fairly recently, actually, researchers have discovered the system by which the brain cleans itself. We used to think that waste products produced in the brain were just kind of recycled in the brain. But now we know that there's this thing called the glymphatic system, and it removes waste from the brain, such as beta amyloids, which are associated with Alzheimer's disease. So, we don't want that. Clearing those beta amyloids out would be a good thing. And this system, the glymphatic system that cleans out these Alzheimer producing, objects, they literally are objects. this system, the lymphatic system that cleans out this dementia causing gunk, that's only active when you sleep. So the beta amyloid levels in the brain, in the research, they can see that these beta amyloid levels in the brain can be tested, right? And they're shown to be high when sleep was disrupted. So, and this is what happens, like in this research, one night of sleep deprivation. So if you're getting like, 2 weeks of like 6 hours of sleep or less, which how many of us are guilty of that? That's equal to staying awake for 2 days relative to your cognitive function. The most immediate risk with inadequate sleep, of course, is just, killing yourself or somebody else in a car. That's sleep deprivation is the cause of up to approximately 30% of motor vehicle deaths because you're impaired. It's like driving drunk when you are sleep impaired. Okay, sleep also, here's another thing you're not going to want to hear, but sleep has a significant impact on our weight also. Lack of sleep causes weight gain for a couple reasons. One, you eat more when you have been sleep deprived, and there is research that shows this, multiple studies that show this. And also when you're sleep deprived, you crave unhealthy crap when you're sleep deprived. Again, multiple research studies show this. So, but here is even maybe a bigger mind-blowing thing that happens. So even if your calorie intake is restricted, right? Like you're on a diet trying to lose weight and you are just willpowered through it, but you are sleep deprived, you actually end up losing more lean body mass than fat. And in that research, that was only with 3 hours less sleep per week. Per week! Like 3 hours over the whole week less than you should be getting. So even if, you're dieting and restricting, you are working against your body when you're not getting enough sleep. So the bottom line is you got to go to bed. That's just it. And I know what all of you are thinking. I know what you're thinking. You're thinking, but I'm just not sleepy until 1 o'clock in the morning or something. Okay, I'm telling you, that's the biggest crock of BS I probably have heard. Not in a long time, because I hear it all the time. I hear it all the time. Here's the deal. The reason you're not sleepy is that you're tricking your brain that it's still time to be awake. And the way that you are doing that is that we have this unnatural environment all around us, right? We're not sleeping outside in the woods where we wouldn't have, the TV, all the lights, social media, all that stuff is keeping you awake. I guarantee you, if you turn off the TV, you turn off your phone, even if you read a book, if maybe you have this tiny little book light that's just on your book and you're reading, you will go to sleep. You're not going to stay awake without the unnatural environment. The unnatural environment is what is keeping you awake. So all that stimulation, all the light, like the light is how your body knows, right? It's been evolving for 2 million years to be within the cycle of the day, the sun, right? Is that what would tell people to go to sleep and when to wake up. So you're tricking your brain with unnatural light. So if you are finding it difficult, you're staying up watching TV, social media, and you're finding it difficult to turn them off, then you're going to have to address that destructive, behavior with, we've talked about lots of techniques, and you can read my book about how you can address those things. but you got to figure out how to turn that stuff off and go to bed. So, and of course, if you're, like, oh, that stuff doesn't affect me, I could like put it down whenever I want to, blah, blah, blah. Then do it, then do it, then demonstrate that you can and go to bed. Okay. So for most of us, it's just really a matter of like getting in a better routine, right? So use the alarms, right, on your phone. You go ahead and use that Apple Health app to set a time that you want to go to bed, and it'll remind you, hey, it's time to start winding down. So that way, if you're up, doing all the crap around the house and whatever, it's sends you a little reminder, you get the ding, and you're like, okay, I need to like wrap this up and I need to like start making my way to bed. So use that stuff to help you. If you really, like the technology stuff, you like seeing like how well your sleep is and all that, then, go ahead, like invest in an Oura ring or a Whoop or whatever, it'll tell you like, how good a sleep you're getting and like how much you should be getting and, whether you're really recovered and all that stuff. Go ahead, do all that stuff. If you are, though, finding like just falling asleep difficult and you've done the stuff, right? You've turned off the phone, you've turned off the TV, you've turned off the lights. It's really a matter of what they call sleep hygiene, like getting the environment in the most conducive fashion to help promote sleep. So, first of all, go to bed only when you intend to go to bed and when you're tired. A lot of people struggle with like the bed being associated with other stimulating activity. And so their brain is anticipating other things. And we want the bed to be associated with sleepiness and going to sleep. So that's a small step, is going to bed when you're tired. However, that said, there's nothing wrong with if you're not really sure because you don't have a good habit of it, there's nothing wrong with turn all the lights off, right? Try to go to sleep, try to go to bed, read a little bit, not on your phone, read a book, something with a tiny, tiny light, use a meditation, a sleep app, something like that. Go ahead and try. And then if you're finding that it's difficult, right, to go to sleep, then that's when go ahead and get up. You don't want to you don't want the bed to be associated with anxiety and stuff. All right. So with that, don't use the bed for anything else, right? Except maybe sex. Just use it for sleep. That's it. We don't want that association. If you're not falling asleep within 20 minutes or so, then go ahead and, go to another room until you feel sleepy again, and like keep doing that as many times through the night as you need to. But again, don't go in the kitchen and like turn all the lights on and start making tea and all that crap. Don't do that. If tea like helps you, of course, non-caffeinated tea, because something warm, helps you, that's fine. But don't go turn all the lights on. You just want a minimal light. That light is going to kill you. The other thing is get up at the same time every morning, regardless of how much sleep you get. This is to get you like in the habit. I will say, after you've established a habit of, getting adequate sleep, then something happens and like you have to be awake longer. We all have those like family emergencies, or you stayed up for a concert or whatever it is. The thing that's abnormal, I personally don't recommend, like if you normally get up at 5 a.m. but you stayed up until midnight, don't do that, right? You're just causing the hit to your body by not getting enough sleep. Don't do that. You're better off not working out that day, right? Sleep as late as you can until you have to like get up to get to work or whatever, but miss your workout if you didn't get enough sleep. But as far as like getting in the habit, we want to get up at the same time every day. And the reason for that is then you're going to be tired at the end of the day, and that's going to help you get into that routine. And as far as making yourself tired, exercise. It's, and the other thing is it's okay to get it in like whenever you can, even if that's like near bedtime, that's fine. It's not going to disrupt your sleep. There's research. We know it doesn't disrupt your sleep. You're better off getting in the exercise whenever you can, and get in whatever you can. Don't freak out because, oh my God, I don't have an hour to work out, whatever. Anything to expend some energy is going to help you sleep. And that's the goal here. Is sleep is the number one goal. So whatever exercise you can do to expend some energy and like get to sleep, right? That's the thing. This one should go without saying, but I'm just going to say it for the sake of putting it out there. Don't no caffeine, right? Like, yeah, okay, first thing in the morning, but after that, don't. It's caffeine, the half-life on caffeine, it takes a long time to get out of your system. So, at least within 6 hours, and I would say even more than that. Don't be having caffeine. Nicotine also is a stimulant. If you can at all not do the nicotine, I know that's a whole another addiction issue, but that will screw with your sleep. Alcohol also screws with your sleep. I know a lot of people think, oh, it relaxes me. No, it does. I understand that it feels that way then, but it absolutely disrupts your sleep. You don't get into the deep sleep cycle when you have used alcohol. So, if you insist on drinking, like have your lunchtime drinking, don't drink at dinner. Even like I was saying, even 6 hours before bed, a cup of coffee can reduce sleep time by up to an hour. So just don't. Alcohol and nicotine, that includes using the patch, not just smoking, have the same effects on ruining your sleep. Okay. Also for sleeping, eating better will help you. So we know from the research that meat and sugar screw with your sleep. So stop eating. Overall, you should, eat better, clean up your diet. Don't eat that crap. But also, whatever you eat, stop eating at least 2 hours before bedtime. The later you consume stuff, the more it screws with your sleep. And then just improve your bedroom for better sleep hygiene. You want it to be dark. You want it to be cool. It needs to be really comfortable. Just create like that relaxing environment, maybe even with like the spa music or whatever, like makes you feel really relaxed. Do all those things. Like the first thing we want to do is put this effort, any effort that you thought you were going to put into like, going and shopping for groceries, the healthy groceries, or like figuring out what your workout routine was going to be. Like, let's focus that on how to make better sleep. Also, one thing that helps a lot is take a shower before bed. So nice warm shower really helps get your body temperature down. I know that seems counterintuitive because you take a hot shower, but actually in the cooling process, that gets your body temperature down, and that sends the signal to your brain, hey, it's time to go to sleep. Okay. The last bit is even if you're struggling to go to sleep, don't use sleeping pills. Please do not use sleeping pills. The research shows that people that take Ambien, even not that frequent, right? Less than like 18 pills a year, they have 3 times the risk of premature death. So, and this is multiple studies. This isn't my opinion. Multiple studies have demonstrated this. Don't take the sleeping pills. A few things have shown to help, vitamin D supplements. You can try that. Which kind of makes sense. Vitamin D is, you produce it from sun exposure. So there's something to do with your circadian rhythm there. Also melatonin as a supplement can help. However, um, those supplements often have contaminants, or they're just inadequate purity, to reach like a clinical effect. So there are actually foods that have high melatonin. For example, pistachios, have a high melatonin content. So, and just like 2 pistachios. So, take like a couple, eat a couple pistachios, maybe half hour before bed. That's not enough to disrupt your sleep, but you'll get the melatonin effect. Again, your body like creates that natural melatonin when it gets dark, again, with the light. So you, that you can kind of double up that melatonin effects by taking those pistachios as it's starting to get dark and stuff. You'll get the kind of the wave of melatonin to help you go to sleep. All right. So now here's the big question. And this is the thing that everybody's going to poo-pah over and whatever. But I'm telling you, this is what the data says. And I know you're going to say, oh no, I don't need that much. I function well, blah, blah, blah. I'm just saying, just try it. Just try it, right? This is what the data says. And if you're telling me, oh no, you're not good after this much sleep, okay, then go back to your old way. But I promise you, if you just run your own test, you're going to see improvement. So how much sleep do you need? You need to be shooting for at least 8 to 8.5 hours. Some of the research shows that you will be okay with between 7 and 8. But the deal is, even when you try to get 8, you won't get 8, right? You'll be awake more than you realize. You didn't get to bed as planned. It took you longer to fall asleep, whatever. So if you're like, oh yeah, I'm going to sleep from 9 p.m. to 5 a.m. and then you're not getting in bed until 9 o'clock. Well, that's right. You're done already. You're not getting 8 hours of sleep, because I guarantee you're not going to fall asleep within 60 seconds of laying down. So you got to shoot for more than 8 so that you actually will get the 8 or even less. All right. So the other thing is, we oftentimes try to we're going to soldier on when we're tired during the day, right? We're going to have the cup of coffee in the afternoon, even though we know it's going to mess with our sleep that night. So if at all possible, if you're tired, rest, right? Even if if you can take a nap, by all means, take the nap. I mean, even, 10, 20 minutes will help you immensely. You're tired for a reason. Your body is telling you, hey, you didn't get enough sleep, or there's something else going on. It's fighting something. It's fighting a virus. It's fighting infection, whatever. It's trying to tell you, dude, slow down. I'm tired, right? So even if you don't get the nap, go at least, sit in a dark room or something for a few minutes and get some kind of rest. If you use the stimulants, you know what's going to happen. It's going to ruin your sleep. And then it's just the vicious cycle, right? It just keeps going on and on and on. And, I know that with a lot of this, we're talking about all this confounding kind of destructive behaviors. If you're struggling with alcohol, tobacco, poor diet, you might have to work on these things in parallel with your sleep. But just know that some of those changes really need to be even just modest, changes. The smallest amount that you can kind of eke out is in support of improving your sleep, because once you start getting good sleep, other changes are going to be so much easier to implement. You're actually, going to be in a place that you can start implementing some of those changes. So sleep, sleep, sleep. And if you want more data on this, read this book. I wish I had it with me. We'll put it up for you. Read a book called Why We Sleep by Dr. Matthew Walker. Just, mind-blowing about what we know about sleep, our brains, and the cascading effect of when we don't sleep. So read the book if you're struggling with sleep. Maybe that's your nighttime reading. But yes, do get serious about sleep. It is, no kidding, the keystone to anything else. We'll see you again next time.